Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is your instructor, Mr. Meekins, and I am trying to get ready to do a video with you, but my screen just moved, and that didn't work either, so let me try this. Give me 1 second, I'll be right with you. Okay, are you going to move up or no? Okay, good. So I am your instructor, Mr. Meekins, and we're going to be taking a look at our first video together. I want to say something before we start this video that you need to make sure that you're doing a rough draft. So previous to being able to access this, you had the same assignment that showed up as a PDF that you need to print out and work on your own before you watch the video with me where I do it in its entirety for you. It's kind of like being in the class and your instructor's, giving you notes to take, right? So doing this on your own is kind of like your notes, your rough draft that you're going to need to upload to me. And then after the instructor gives notes, he breaks the students, or she breaks the students off into groups to work on the board or at the table to do some problems. And then at the end, the instructor or some students put the stuff on the board and we work through them and make sure you did it correctly. So you go back and take the notes to make sure you have it correctly. But since it's not an in-person class and it's asynchronous, this is kind of the way that you're going to be doing your notes for me, is in a rough draft of this, doing it on your own. You're going to put some notes down. Let me get my pen working here. So for instance, if you don't understand sets, but you did read and watch some videos before this, right? If you don't understand sets, put a little question mark here on sets, right? And then I'm also sorry about my writing is not the greatest. My tablet's a little bit old and it's like 5 years old and it doesn't snap as good as some of the new tablets, which I'd love to get, but they're pretty expensive. Um, when you take the notes, put some notes down, put some wording. Maybe you didn't understand what a complement was when you did it on your own. So complement, question mark or something like that. However you want to do your notes, you just got to turn in a rough draft to me, and the rough draft has to have something there. You got to put some notes down on it. You can't turn me in a blank rough draft. It is part of your grade, so make sure you're doing that. And then when you meet me, when you meet me to watch the video with what I'm doing right now, you'll be doing it in its entirety. Everything that I do, you'll do on it. By the way, I wanted to say something else about about the rough draft. You got to show me that you're doing a rough draft and the final draft, which is where we work together. So if you want to just do one PDF, right, that you print out and do that, you might up in the top corner maybe say blue equals rough draft. Okay, DRAF. I can't even spell it. Rough draft, and maybe you use a black pen or a red pen, and we'll say black. Black equals final draft. So I understand what your rough draft was, where your questions were, your concerns, and where your final draft is. Okay. It's required that you have both of these. You do the rough draft before you move on and do this final. Okay, let's get started here. Let's look at Venn diagrams, right? What are Venn diagrams? Let's look at our problems. We already read through this, right? You did the readings and you watched the videos, so you should have a familiarity with them, but let's go through these together. Example for the following Venn diagrams, shade the appropriate region described by the set. So the first region we have right here, the region is this rectangle, is what's a universal set? What do we call a universal set? And a universal set, basically it's called the universe. And it's everything in the rectangle. Okay, the universe, everything. Okay, and then so these are all of our elements that will exist either in the circle A, B, or where they overlap, or outside of the circle A, B, which is the rest of your universe, correct? A and B exist in the universe, and so does everything outside of it, but inside the rectangle. And that's what we call the universal set, everything in the rectangle. What about the complement? A complement. And it's written as, you can write it out long like that, A complement. There's another way to write this too. A complement is the same as A prime, or this is really what they call A naught. It means it's not A. That's the same as the complement. When you say A complement, what you're saying is everything that is not in A. So what's the stuff that's not in A? The stuff that's not in A is everything in the universe but A. And you notice B is trapped inside of A. So you can't shade B because B is inside of A, and we want everything that's not inside of A. That's what the complement is. The complement is opposite of A, or what is not A is A complement, okay? So everything not in A. Now if I had a circle that was sitting over here that was not in A, and you can't see that very well, say I had another circle over here. There's that circle you can see on top of my stuff, and maybe that's circle C, correct? That would be part of our stuff we'd be shading in blue because it's not an A, right? Okay, let's move on here. What about the union? The union is all elements in A and in B and in you know what, I wanted to say all elements in A or B there. All elements in A or all elements in A and B, and all elements in A and B. So the first part, all elements in A, correct, would be this, but they're also, if I just said all elements in A, and then in B, right? And when I say A, I really should be shading in the center, but that's where I'm trying to say A, B. And that's all elements in B, and this is all elements in A and B. But if I do say B, even though it's overlapping, it's that. But the union is all of A, all of B, and all of where they share in common. I like to think of the union like the Union Station in LA, correct? You go into the Union Station to pick up any one of the trains, and the trains leave from the Union Station. So if you take train A or train B or train C, you caught it from the Union Station. They all connect to the Union Station, so they're all part of the Union, right? You could pick up any one of them. So if you wanted to think of the Union, you're kind of sitting in the center there, but both those overlap at that location where it's the Union. They're all part of the Union. And that's why they call it a Union Station, by the way. Intersection. What I like to tell students about an intersection is two streets come together. Where two streets come together, they overlap, and that's called their intersection. That's why they call it an intersection. Streets overlap. Well, their intersection for these two elements is where they overlap, right here. Number 6 over here is A intersect with B is this thing, and that thing is what we call the empty set. It means empty set. Another way of saying it is with braces with nothing in there. Empty set means there's nothing there. And if you look at A and you look at B and you're talking about the intersection here, they don't intersect. They don't overlap, so there's nothing in their intersection, and that's why it's the empty set on that one. Okay, let's take a look at this other part down here. And then I have to build another video in just a minute. This says example 2. I'm only allowed to get so long on these videos that I'm working with. So example 2 here says we're going to use the key terms below and the corresponding symbols. Write as many facts as you can about the following sets. I'm going to tell you what this is. You're going to need to pause the video and probably rewind, okay? So my cat's bothering me, wants to play. You're probably going to have to rewind, but I'll write some of this stuff down here. It says write as many facts as you can about the following sets, where the union, this thing right here is called, or excuse me, not union, it's called our universe. Our universe equals, and this is what it says, that's a set. That little brace means set. The set of x, and then the straight line means the set of x such that. That straight line means such that, and then these are the requirements on x. X is a letter of the alphabet. So the first thing you would say is the set. That's what that brace means. The set of what? The set of x. And then the little line, that straight line, means such that. Okay? And then over here to the left, where x is the letter of the alphabet. Those are the requirements of the set of x. Once you say such that, you're talking about the requirements now. Okay? Okay, I'm going to erase that. So I'm going to say it one more time for you, or you can pause it and go back. The universe is equal to the set of x such that x is a letter of the alphabet. There's your requirements. X is a letter of the alphabet. So what we want to look at, that's our universe for these problems below here. What we want to look at is the A, B, C, D, and E, correct? Okay? And we want you to write down some information about what you've learned. What is an element? What's a complement? What's a cardinality, union, intersection, subset, proper subset, empty set, mutually exclusive? Okay? So if